All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February Executive Committee meeting of Manhattan Community Board 4. We're doing this remotely by Zoom because Governor Cuomo told us we could almost a year ago now. We've been doing this 11 months. We've been doing remote meetings. Is it ever going to end? It is clearly having an effect on board business, and hopefully we can make it through this and keep moving. The first item on our agenda for this evening is a vote from the Executive Committee because it's coming from the Social and Racial Justice Task Force. So exec has to approve it before it goes to the full board for ratification. Who is going to present on this letter?
Darren is here to present.
Darren, the floor is yours.
Sounds good. Just 1 second. So during the last task force meeting, we basically, before we met, actually, we reviewed the POST Act, which stands for Public Oversight of Surveillance Technology, that NYPD is required to actually make sort of information more transparent, available to folks. And there's a period for people to post comments online. And we reviewed the POST Act. There's a lot in it. And none of us are lawyers and sort of, folks who actually understand technology to the extent you would like to understand it. But we recognize, can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, no, I could hear an echo again, sorry. So the position the task force took was to, rather than comment on each and every policy procedure and protocols, we wanted to understand how it could affect us and what is it that we can ask for in terms of what is not included rather than what is included. So then the way the letter is structured now is there are two sort of primary asks. One is asking for an educational and public awareness campaign to explain to New Yorkers how they are going to be surveilled and how the streets of New York City and public spaces are being under surveillance. Second ask is create an independent oversight commission to periodically review the use of surveillance technology and its impact on the privacy of New Yorkers. Now, if you remember one of the first lessons that I'm really sorry, I can hear echo. Is everyone okay? I can hear the echo.
I just muted some people, so you should be okay, Darren.
Okay, good. All right. So if you remember previously, we had at the beginning of the task force formation, while it was still being called a working group, we had requested for an oversight commission, independent oversight commission, beyond CCRB. And that we never actually got any kind of positive response for. This letter is asking for it again, reiterating the same request. And then just quick sort of synopsis of what took place last meeting. We had invited NYPD representative, Robert Barrows, who is their legal counsel, who could speak in terms of what policies and protocols are for NYPD surveillance technologies. And that was extremely helpful, actually. It reinforced the requests that we are making. He himself also acknowledged, first of all, I think it was extremely well received by the task force members because he quite satisfactorily answered multiple questions. And it was very, very helpful presentation and very helpful sort of question and answer session. And he was supposed to be there for 10, 15 minutes, but the conversation went on for almost an hour, which was very good. And he also offered to come back and speak to the task force again or the full board if so required. And one of the things that he did acknowledge is that a request for information, educational, and public awareness campaign is something that he wants to take back to NYPD. And the second thing that came through during that conversation was potentially for NYPD to partner with educational institutes which are looking into surveillance technology at a much deeper level than the community board folks or normal folks like us would ever be able to do. So that's the sort of background in terms of NYPD's preliminary sort of response to what we were asking for.
Does anyone have any questions on this letter? Betty, go ahead.
Thank you, Viren. I'm getting an education with this letter. I was wondering at the end, the last paragraph, that the board urges the city council to create an education campaign and create an oversight commission. Has two things. A, has the task force discussed that idea with city council folks? And B, since you got such a positive response from the police department guy, maybe you might want to edit that last paragraph about the campaign, maybe to explore partnering with the police department and other educational institutions.
Betty, yes, thank you. We haven't had anything directed with city council yet. This would be the first time. Well, technically, it will be the second time we'll be asking for this independent commission request. But regarding post-act, there has been no direct conversation with city council folks. And second part, thank you. I think that needs to be added. We need to work on it. And we're going to add the last piece, which is about NYPD's potential willingness to partner with universities and educational institutes. And one of the main universities that actually is looking at this very closely is Harvard University. And one of the professors who teaches there has come out with a fantastic book. It's called Surveillance Capitalism. Extremely important work that's being actually looked at by Congress as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Bert? And then
Yeah.
Leslie. You're on mute, sir.
Like Betty said, the letter is a educational value to me, putting it all together. I was wondering if the task force has reached out to other community boards, or have other community boards made similar proposals?
The task force hasn't reached out to any other community boards. This actually came almost sort of, how do I put it? Jesse can explain that to you. But we were actually reaching out to NYPD for someone to come and make a presentation about, facial recognition software and other surveillance technologies. And in the process, Jesse came to know about this whole comment period and the post-act being put up online. So we haven't had a chance to actually go beyond from, whatever we could do within the amount of time we had was to have internal conversation within the task force, mostly via email, until the last meeting. So no, we haven't reached out to anybody else.
The process for that, Bert, as you know, is I could take that to borough board and ask the other community boards to sign on if we wanted them to.
Yeah, I was thinking that that might be something you might want to do
Okay.
if we pass this at exec here.
All right. If this passes, if it passes the full board, I'll take it to Brian for borough.
Laura, can I add one more thing to Bert's question?
Sure.
Interestingly enough, Mr. Barrows, who came for that presentation, acknowledged the need for him to reach out to other community boards and sort of have these kind of listening sessions. He did sort of not directly, but kind of implied that we probably could do something similar in terms of, spreading the word about how important this is to other boards. I didn't use the words other boards, but other communities, so to speak.
All right. I'll take that once it gets through full board. Leslie.
I'll put this under the unintended consequences list. So Viren, if you could, can you guys go back and maybe put something, a line in or even a paragraph about body cameras? Because though it's my understanding that there is no embedded facial recognition software in NYPD's body cameras, they do have access where these body cameras footage can be run through facial recognition. I just didn't, and I know it's going to be, I don't know if it is now, but I am anticipating that will be a big deal when, you know, someone stopped and their face is right in the body camera, they're recording all that. I just didn't know, there was no line about body cameras, and I think maybe that might be to add in when we request. Is that okay?
Yes, will do.
Thank you.
Mike,
That was explicit in this by the speaker. I just wanted to drop that in. He said
Yes.
that would happen.
Mike Noble.
Yeah, Viren, just one thing that, I wanted to mention that came up at our meeting that addresses a little bit what Leslie just said. And that is that in order to run any photo that you take, that you grab anywhere through the facial recognition system, you got to take it to a body within the police department. And they can only compare that photo, that still picture, with arrest photos. That's it. That's a sum total of their database. So it's not a widespread kind of thing that we all have in mind. I think you see on TV and all. It's a pretty rare occurrence, in fact, when they do take a still and get it run through and wind up with someone. And it's because it's limited at this time, much unlike other jurisdictions where they pictures that they grab anywhere can be run through that system. Ours cannot. So that was a reassuring thing. And I just wanted everybody to know that. Right, Vern?
Right, totally, Mike. I think one of the things that we did, like at the start, I said, this letter doesn't sort of bring up issues that are non-issues because it's properly covered in the post-act. So that piece is actually quite well covered, that they basically, NYPD uses any facial recognition photograph against their own database. They don't go to other folks' database. You're right.
Marty.
Mike is correct in reporting. I heard similar language, but I have to say that facial recognition can be used against any database. And even though we were told that they have some checks and balances in place to be sure that it's only used against the arrest database, nowhere and no one said that it would not. Mike, you used the word cannot. It can be.
I misspoke. Under the current policy.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. I'm a little more skeptical than your statement, but maybe that's just me.
Oh no, I am too. I'm just saying current policy, which is amendable.
No, and Mike is right, and I think we've included language in the letter that there should be safeguards in place so there is no such abuse, knowingly or unknowingly. And we know that police have access to social media data and other databases across the city, and there's no way for us to know. All we can ask for is, can you safeguard? Can you put in some sort of checks and balances so that we can understand how it's been used and where it came from?
Okay. Alan.
So would the check and balances have to come from city council? Or is that the NYPD is going to make that determination as to what they can do or can't do?
Well, the letter asks for an independent commission.
Currently, the Post Act has made provision for internal oversight. And we're saying that it should be independent, even of CCRB. CCRB is one body that is supposed to do that. We're asking the city council to get involved and have their own independent body for oversight. That's what we're asking for.
Okay. Any other questions on this letter? All right, I'll take a motion for a vote.
So moved.
And I see a couple of hands for a second. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone present not eligible or otherwise not voting? All right, thank you.
I was an aye. Stood up again.
You're okay. Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
All right.
I'm sorry, Mike. What was Mike's vote?
Mike was yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Next item, another vote. Revised stipulations.
Thank you all.
Revised stipulations to the SLA, Ray 350 11th Avenue at 30th Street. That's the Eastern Rail Yards retail provision. This is a follow-up from the full board. Frank, floor is yours.
Okay, this is the Pavilion location in Hudson Yards. It's a sort of it has currently been operating as a outdoor cafe space, and the new applicant that came to BLP last month told us that they wanted to put a retractable roof over it. As you may remember, at full board, that was controversial. There was concerns about further enclosing and privatizing the Hudson Yards park space. So at full board, we voted to recommend approval of the liquor license without the roof, but not with the roof. Word of this got back to Related, who called Jesse immediately, and we scheduled a small meeting with a bunch of people from Related, Bert, JD, Joe, and me to clarify what could and couldn't be done here. What we heard was that the existing zoning allows for a 3-story building to be built in this area of the plaza with a maximum lot coverage of 3,600 feet. And what Related told us, and they said they will affirm in writing, is that the planned roof area and accompanying restrooms will be less than the 3,600 square foot maximum, and that this will be the structure that they can build presently under that zoning provision. So this will be, in essence, the indoor building, and they will agree not to build another indoor building under that provision unless they decide to take this one down. So in a sense, it's a sort of almost better than what they could be doing. They could be building a bigger permanent building, but instead they are, building this sort of thing with a retractable roof. The thing we need to vote on today, though, is that at BLP, the operator agreed to keep the sides open permanently, and Related, and now the operator feels strongly that that's a bad idea because given the winds and the weather, it means they might not be able to use this space much of the year. So we were going to suggest an alternate stipulation saying that something to the effect of the roof and sides of the structure will remain open whenever the weather allows, but in event that weather conditions make it impractical to use, the applicant may close portions or all of the sides of the roof to allow the guests to enjoy the space year-round.
Lowell, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, just a quick question, Frank. We need to note in our letter that they noted this is being filed as a temporary structure.
Okay.
And then, Jesse, have we received the affirmations we requested?
You mean from Related?
Yeah.
Yes, I forwarded it to all of you last week.
I'm so sorry. So I just want to say that I would move we approve this pending that final set of affirmations being reviewed and agreed to by Related. That's all.
All right, is there a second for that? JD, did you have a second? Is that a second or a question?
Marty has the question too.
I have a question. What do you mean? I thought if we got the affirmation, then we just should attach the affirmation to the SLA?
Yes, but they sent it to us as draft, Christine, so I haven't looked at it. I'm sorry. We went back and forth in the meeting. Just want to check it out that it follows what they agreed to.
Got it.
Jean-Daniel, you were?
No, I was just a second.
Okay, so I will take a vote.
Marty has his hand
I'm
up.
sorry, Marty, I didn't see the hand. What's up?
I'm using that technology, it's Zoom
I just
class.
didn't see it.
I need an education. I just heard that they have the right to build a 3-story building over a certain footprint. How does that fit with the original memorandum of agreement that said that 40% of that plaza was going to be open to the air for the public or language like that?
I can take that. Actually, Marty, it's a section of the zoning and a specific section like 93 blah, blah, blah about the ERY. And that requirement is embedded in the zoning. So it's consistent with that zoning.
So are you saying, Joe, that this whatever this is at the foot of that suicide machine is not going to take any of the 40% away?
Correct.
I mean, some of that crap has happened already, right? With the canopy of the shed.
No, as per the zoning, as per the Hudson Yards zoning for Eastern Rail Yards, revised by the shed in 2010 or whatever the hell it was, this is covered under a specific section with a square footage requirement. They can build no more than 3,600 square feet at a certain area of the plaza. So that was our big probe and discuss in this meeting we had, because we thought it was over and above that. This was another thing, and that's what we cleared up.
Madame Berthet?
But considering what has happened with the shed, is it time to raise that issue again and say, you know, all this, the number which was in the zoning assumed that the shed was going to be open most of the time. Now the shed is closed. So where's the 40%? And I think that's where
It's Christine,
going to.
your comments and Marty's are polite compared to how we treated them in this
Yeah,
meeting.
but that's related. I'm talking about city planning, saying, hey, you made an agreement and it's not being respected.
I would then refer the shed question back to land use, because that's where the zoning change happened. But for this particular action,
Yeah.
it's limited. They actually, we really have went through this. They're in compliance with the zoning. So that's
Yeah.
why we,
But
I think that's a good idea to bring it back.
I think we should bring back the shed, because between the vessel was never part of any plan.
It actually complies because the footprint of the vessel is within the footprint for the public sculpture. That's how they got around it. And we know it's ridiculous. And we told them as such. Marty, I went like this in the meeting. That's what I did. Okay. So, but they comply with the letter of the zoning, so that even though it's ridiculous and should be removed, we have no recourse now and maybe removed for other reasons.
I think the land
is an issue.
should take back the shed issue and push back on that and say, okay, now everything is built and now here we are. This is the percent which is really actually taken.
Go ahead. Yes,
They've agreed to put the vessel inside the shed. So I think that's all.
That was a joke, everybody.
I would say, Christine or Marty, if you want to look into that very complicated zoning 40%, 60%, and find that they are not complying, that would be great. But we've had a number of meetings, including with Frank, about the shed to try to figure out exactly how they
Well,
are.
they're not complying because it's open all the time. That's the problem.
That's the problem. Yeah.
But Joe, wasn't there, when we last visited this, wasn't there some, I don't know, was there a zoning change or a ruling that said when the shed was open, when the shed was deployed, the plaza would still be deemed open to the sky? I know we opposed that, but I thought someone.
I just think, given the COVID issues and what they've done there, not this moment, but sometime in the spring to go back and check into this is not a bad idea, right? When we're not so busy with like the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey.
Okay, so we're gonna.
Shed on.
All right, can I bring this back to where we are right now? I will get you all, Bert, Marty, I will get back to you. Just to keep this moving, we are going to go back. We're going to ask JD and his committee to please bring related in and haul them on the carpet over the shed and whatever, and we can look and see what they've done. But for the purposes of this letter, what we have been told is that this complies with the current zoning. Now, does anyone have additional questions based upon that? Marty, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Maybe I'm too much of a skeptic tonight. I can't tell. When this whole thing started way back, even before the various machinations of the open to the air and 40% started, we were told that the plaza would be open to the air, 40% to the public. There have been a number of nibbles at that.
This was not one, Marty. This was original from 2005.
And now I'm being told that this is not one. Respectfully, Joe, I hear you, but it doesn't change what I've been hearing. You're saying that this is written. This goes to JD's comment, actually. JD said, if anybody wants to spend the time examining the zoning to try and figure this all out, go ahead. That's not in my wheelhouse. That's not my skill set.
Marty, after the meeting with Related, they cited a section of the zoning. I went and I read it again, and this is consistent with that section of the zoning.
Joe, I totally believe you. My point is that what I'm hearing, absent those who have read that document, what I'm hearing is that part of that 40% is being nibbled away at, and the excuse is being used that it's in the original zoning. Frankly, it sucks.
Lowell, you're on mute.
Let's take a vote.
Alan,
Is the
I
shed,
wanted to vote, but I got to let everyone speak, Christine.
is the shed part of the Related? Is that their obligation? Or is that a city thing? Is it?
All right,
is it-
why, guys, I said, we're not talking about the shed. The shed's not the issue right now.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
because you were talking about bringing the shed back
Issue
or whatever,
is-
so I
The issue is
clarifying.
this temporary structure. The issues with the shed and the 40% to see if they're complying, we will take up at a future date. Right now, all we're talking about is this temporary structure, which Joe has told us complies with the zoning. So I don't understand why we're still discussing zoning.
I'd like to second the motion that was made.
To vote.
I'd like to
Yeah.
call to question.
Thank you, Mr. Desmond.
I think we've got it already, guys. All right. All those in favor of the letter as drafted?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Mr. Ducat is opposed. Anyone abstaining, not present, not eligible, or otherwise not voting? All right, so that letter passes. We've got two LPC letters. One is an admin letter. We just want to present. The other is for a vote. The letter for a vote regards the lobby, the Art Deco lobby and elevators. Well, not elevators, but I think it should include the elevators of our old building. And Jean Danielle, you're going to present this?
Yes, I will. This is about the lobby of the McGraw-Hill building. The lobby has not been landmarked. The exterior was landmarked in 1977. The Land Use Committee reviewed some renovations to the exterior. And subsequently, a number of people have brought up the fact that the lobby may be in the process of being renovated. Number of people, number of organizations went to LPC and said it should be preserved. Unfortunately, DOB, there have already been issued some demo things about the lobby. So everybody is there's a certain urgency about this. David Holoka, who I have spent all weekend going back and forth with emails, bless his heart, he very quickly drafted this very strong letter to LPC. Now, I want to bring it to the executive committee because I feel there's a certain urgency about getting this out. Maybe from the executive committee could ratify it and then go to the full board. However, this is new ground for me. We can certainly issue a letter saying we request an evaluation. That's called an RFE, that they evaluate it. And I think we have grounds for doing that because the interior, the lobby was discussed at the prior Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee, and it was mentioned in our letter. So I think that's a hook to tie that to. I believe David's gone a little further and said we should request that they designate it as a landmark. Jesse had an excellent suggestion that maybe we just suggest that they consider it, that they study it or whatever it is. I weigh in. Pardon me?
That's what an RFE is, request for evaluation.
Yes, I agree. But I don't know which way to go. It's up to the committee. I think we should ratify a letter tonight, but it depends how strong the letter is. And I rely on Jesse for keeping us straight in terms of public process. Jesse, go ahead.
He's got his hand raised.
I'm just going to clarify to say that my thought was that since the board could advocate, for the review of the RFE and a hearing, and that's
Hearing, sorry, that's what I meant.
so that it has its day, because the lobby was not part of the initial application that was submitted to LPC, nor was it obviously part of the presentation to the community boards committee. So whether we believe every one component of the lobby should be landmarked or another, or all of it, or the elevators or not, but we do think it deserves a hearing. And so that would, when that happens, and Joe could tell me if I'm wrong, and probably some other folks on this, but if LPC does take that up, that does sort of put things on hold from a DOB perspective, at least. So therefore there'd be a hearing about that, at least that component of the building.
If it's calendared, it puts everything else on hold, yes.
Mr. Devlin.
JD, one of the questions I asked in the email string that went around the last few days was whether or not we have been in touch. Was it Bill Noble? Was that the guy who?
Bill Higgins.
Bill Higgins. Has anybody reached out to him or their development team to find out what their thoughts are? Because there are 3 RFEs submitted on this. And if we schedule a hearing and tie things up for them, is it going to bode well for us? And so I just want to know if anybody's spoken with them.
I want to address that, Paul. That's a good question. I think in the letter and also in my back and forth with David, we all agree that it's very important to reach out to Bill Higgins and the owners of the building to maintain the good relationship that we developed at the committee level. But we did not this weekend.
Joe, did you want to piggyback on that answer?
Yeah. First of all, the consultant is Bill Higgins, not the owner. We must reach out to the owner because the consultant doesn't drive it. And the second part is we don't calendar. We're merely requesting that a request for evaluation and landmarks calendar a hearing. That's what they would do. And without any question, I'm going to recommend, I would say that we should approve this letter, but if and only if we contact the applicant first, because we had a good back and forth and asking in writing. So it's put in writing that we're doing this. It doesn't feel like you're doing a bait and switch. That's all.
Mr. LaFrancois.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. JD, great letter. Even though David, it's your committee. Come on, take the credit. And I guess I'm a little worried if permits are already being issued. I think it's useful for us to be as strong as possible in that, I mean, if a permit's already been issued for partial demo or something, I mean, the green could be gone already. So I would support a more drastic step than we would ordinarily take, given where they may be in the process.
With the more drastic,
I'm not sure what do you
mean? Well,
that's
JD. I felt that that's the RFE basically, not just a please consider. That's the formal step we can take, I think, right?
RFE and calendar.
And calendar. I guess landmarks isn't going to calendar without a study. So do we know whether, was anything ever, I guess not from an interior perspective, it wouldn't have been identified by a past EIS or something as, historic in some manner or another.
It's mentioned in the original report.
The interior?
Yes.
Okay, then that's a considerable branch to stand on, I think.
Jeffrey, I thought you meant we should actually go sit in the lobby. That would be right.
Well, it's Art Deco. We'll bring our martinis and have a good afternoon of it, I guess.
Ms. McIntosh.
No, great letter. And I kind of going along with what Jeffrey said, that maybe the letter might have some language about DOB stopping whatever, stopping for this evaluation, because you don't want them to go ahead and say, yeah, you can demolish the lobby. So something a little stronger in the letter.
I think there is something about.
Did I miss
it? No. What we request that LPC contact DOB?
Yes.
or,
They don't,
Not
they
sure.
won't do that.
yeah. Not sure what you,
I don't
Which-
know if you could just put some language in that we want DOB to, I don't know the words, to withdraw or put a moratorium on their permit or something that stops them permitting destruction of the lobby.
Joe,
Anyway,
is that automatic once LPC issues, the RFE?
If they're doing an RFE, they normally communicate to other agencies, but the moment they calendar, they're obligated to communicate to other agencies.
All right, but you said they won't calendar until there's an RFE.
Correct. I mean, listen, we can make it our request to ask if they pursue an RFE to communicate with DOB to clarify that. That's a good idea.
Right, because we understand that construction is imminent,
Right.
or demolition.
Okay, I get it.
okay,
got you.
thank you.
Hazarin.
That's good.
okay.
Yeah, I think the letter is great, stronger the better. I also would like us not to operate on our own. So maybe it's, on my copy that I printed out, it doesn't have it, but, let our city council member know what we're doing about this. Or maybe even somebody else in addition to city council. But we should have allies in this. That's what I'm saying. We
Bert,
should have allies.
Good point, but Bert, this is really just, mainly this weekend, there's been a lot of back and forth, so we haven't had time to recruit. But we can copy them in the letter, is that what you're suggesting? Or-
Definitely. And maybe a telephone call.
I can speak.
Okay.
Quickly. I'm sorry to jump in, Christine, on that, Bert, and everybody else. Corey's office is very aware of this, and they're working on outreach to the owner to see what flexibility and willingness there is to have about a conversation.
Good to know.
Okay, Christine.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful that in the very first paragraph, 2 or 3 lines, we talk about the permits and the DOB and why it's urgent for them to take a step. I don't see that urgency in the first paragraph there. And I think this is what we need to communicate.
Christine, I will try to rework it, but there, as Paul said, there already been a number of RFEs submitted.
RFE requests.
Requests, so I'm sure they're pretty aware of it, but we can try to put it up front.
I mean, I think we need to link that to the DOB and the permits, right? It's a great letter.
All right, any other questions?
Yeah, I do. I'm not quite trying to get this straight. So the idea is that we may vote to send this letter out from the executive committee.
Yes.
But Joe wants us to send first a letter to the building owner. Is that right, Joe, before we send this?
Well, because I want to remind everybody, we have a huge win here. They came to remove the sign on top of the building, and they withdrew that in response to our requests. So we got rid of the fact they're going to remove McGraw-Hill and turn it to 330 West 42nd. So they have a good relationship. Therefore, we should be direct and open prior to taking this action. That's all.
I understand that, Joe, but you had suggested we write a letter to them. So
Jesse writes an administrative letter stating, here's what we're doing.
Okay.
Joe, would you be okay if that administrative letter goes out the same time this letter goes to LPC?
I think it should go at least a day before or something. It's a simple letter saying, here's what we're doing.
All right.
We can get this out before full board, and we can hopefully have a response from them at least before full board. So then we're knowing where we fall out on full board, and you guys can make it.
Okay, so we're saying that the letter to LPC that we're going to vote out will go to full board. It won't be sent. Is that what you're suggesting, Jesse? Okay.
I think that's.
Don't you think the urgency is the point here, and we should?
I think we can send it now and ratify a full board. No.
Well, all right. Wait a minute. One at a time. Here's the thing. You just said that you want to send the administrative letter first, Joe.
I'm sorry. Let me make the following proposal. Maybe I'll bring clarity to it.
Please.
That in the next day, Jesse send out an administrative letter to the owner stating we're taking a position. And then we also tonight ratify this letter, but don't send it for a date, giving Jesse the ability to send administrative letter first. So no one is
Okay.
caught unawares.
Not holding this for full board. It will just go to full board for ratification is what
Correct, yes.
Marty?
I'm listening to Joe and I agree with everything I heard, except doesn't it make sense to make a phone call
Yeah,
before the letter is sent?
So we're
I
saying,
just put in, yeah, but put it in writing so it's clear, so we're
Yeah,
not.
yeah. Put it in writing, but before that letter goes out, you said we have a good relationship with them, and we do. Just sending a letter is not a good relationship.
No, do both. I agree, Marty, sorry. Good idea.
Who makes the phone call? Joe, you or
Jesse.
Jesse? All right, Jesse, more work for you.
I was going to suggest the same thing Marty did. I mean, telephone,
good.
old-fashioned technology, but use it. Come on.
Okay. Mike Noble.
It's urgent. It's urgent.
Yeah, just thinking about Bill Higgins again. Can we at least copy him on both these letters?
Sure, but he's the consultant, not the owner.
No, I know, but he's our friend, and he thinks the way we do on this, I think. So
I think that's a good idea, Mike, because I think he was underneath it all supportive of our position. So I think that's a very good idea.
All right, do I need to recap what we're voting on, or does everyone got it?
I just want to give credit to David Holoka. I don't know if he's with us, but David, good job.
All right.
Lo, can you recap?
Okay, we are going, Jesse, the first thing is Jesse's going to make a phone call tomorrow to the owner and say that we are looking to have the Landmark Preservation Commission look at this. We will then be sending a follow-up letter to the owner that says basically the same thing that Jesse's going to say on the phone call. We are going to give them 24 hours to get back to us, at which point the letter that Dave Holoka drafted with the amendments that have been suggested here tonight will be sent to LPC. And are we copying the speaker?
Yes.
Copying the speaker and copying the consultants.
POB.
All right, that's what's on the table. Do I have a motion to that effect?
Motion.
So moved.
So moved.
All right, I got a couple.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone present not eligible or otherwise not voting? Good, that passes unanimously. Next LPC letter. This is an administrative letter, is the way it reads on the agenda. Jean Danielle?
Yes, this was a letter we wrote in May of 2019, I think it was, Jesse, about a Catholic church on West 53rd Street between 8th and 9th called St. Benedict the Moore. And at one time, it housed the first Black Catholic congregation north of the Mason-Dixon line. They were first in the village, and then they moved up to West 53rd Street. And so it's important in terms of our history up in Hell's Kitchen. It was a very important Black Catholic church where Blacks from all over Manhattan came and attended their services. The building itself, we also thought could be landmarked. So that was our letter. We have, as far as I know, have not heard back. But in light of Black History Month, this month, we thought we should resend the letter with an administrative cover letter saying we're resending this letter, and anything you all want to add to that letter. That was the thought. We are trying to make more work for Jesse because we're
Right, all right. So this is we're going to send an admin letter. I can, say we're going to do that as the chair. So there's no question about doing what JD just suggested. Does anyone have anything they want to add to the letter besides saying, hey, you haven't looked at this. We sent it over a year ago, almost 2 years ago. Give us a goddamn answer. Christine.
Yeah, I think we should really enroll Gail Brewer in that and leverage our influence into helping with that process.
Okay. So we'll copy Gail on the admin letter. Alan.
Has anything happened to the church, the facade, the structure of the church since 2019?
No.
Marty.
I'm completely in favor of the letter. What I'm asking for, no matter the answer, has nothing to do with whether you send the letter. This request that the church be landmarked is going to cost somebody a lot of money. What's our position on that?
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, we need to know the administrative letter. Our action from 2019 is our second action. Our first was in 2009 as part of Western Rail Yards rezoning, and that building was deemed landmark eligible by LPC and EIS for Western Rail Yards, and they never acted on it. What has happened differently for Alan and Marty is the church since that time has been deconsecrated, and therefore is no longer a functioning church and can be sold as a piece of real estate. And that's why we brought it up in 2019 when we heard about the deconsecration. Sorry, yeah.
You're right.
Right.
Consecration,
But I
yeah.
think we just need to note that in the administrative letter that it is not used as a religious building. And certainly, I'm really not so concerned about the Catholic Church's ability to retain the best and highest use for a historic building.
Joe, is that also saying that you don't have a concern about how much money the church will have to spend to keep this building functioning?
This is more about the church selling this as a development site and demolishing it, Marty. Not about upkeep.
Thank you.
Maria, did you have your hand up before? All right, Jessica.
I just want to second then Christine's suggestion that we reach out to Gail Brewer specifically because she's been focused. She had a task force last year about the sale of religious institutions and trying to keep them within that designation. And so they may have even done work on this facility, and maybe we can just find out if this has been listed as part of that effort.
Jesse,
Right, wait a minute.
Sorry.
Jesse, can you move Lizette over?
Sure.
We're about to find out whether or not Gail Brewer's office has done anything about this. She's here, so we're going to make use of her.
Hope she's ready.
I gave her enough warning here. Hi, Lizette. For those of you who don't know, Lizette Chaparro works for Gail, and she is the land use planner that covers our district. Lizette, have you been listening to this discussion about the church on 53rd Street?
I'm so sorry. I'm actually on a on a double Zoom right now with another community board.
All right, so here's
you have my attention now, that's for sure.
Here's the issue. The St. Benedict the Moore Church on West 53rd Street was identified as part of the Western Rail Yards to be landmark eligible. We sent a letter in 2009 asking LPC to designate it. We found out in 2019 that the church has been deconsecrated. So it is no longer a church, and we are concerned that the Catholic Church will sell it off. We are going to send an administrative letter to LPC saying, hey, we need you to pay attention to this. But the question has been raised by those of us who know that the borough president loves keeping religious buildings, from turning into commercial developments. So we were wondering if you know anything about this location at 342 West 53rd Street.
No, this is the first I'm hearing of it, but I'm happy to follow up with Jesse or whomever is the best contact at CB4. And then we can also use our community affairs folks to reach out to the church and have a conversation with them as well through our department.
All right, thank you, Lizette. You can go back to your other meeting. Thanks.
So you're on mute if you're trying to
Yeah,
talk.
you were trying to talk to her. You were on mute.
It's controlled by the diocese, sorry.
Yep. Yeah, we meet with them on a regular basis. So so we've got I think is Joe Rosenberg, who's our main contact there.
Yeah, it was the parishes were combined with Sacred Heart, so it's no longer on its own.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so we've got that part covered. We're still going to send this letter, right? Bert.
Can I
Just want to say, Joe, I'm always impressed. Your breadth of knowledge, not just zoning, but the Catholic Church and whose diocese is where and who has what. It's amazing.
His last name's
Restuccia. Hang on.
Wait, I'm going to go to someone else with a Catholic name. Mr.
Exactly,
LaFrancois.
thank you. Mr. LaFrancois, exactly. So I think only in New York would you have a Rosenberg overseeing the Catholic diocese. And there's nothing better about our city that things like that can happen.
I caught that too.
Jay,
Who overlooks us? Who overlooks our Jewish cemeteries?
I think it's
Somebody named Restuccia, probably.
Exactly.
Anyone have any other questions on this letter? On the letter, please. On the letter,
On
please.
the letter.
Go ahead, Mr. Lazarin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay. There was a reporter called me because my name was on the 2019 letter. I took some time getting back to her, and I think I mentioned it to JD because I had no recollection of this. And I asked JD what the current status was. So something is going on if this person is writing a story about this particular church at this particular time. JD, did you speak with her at all?
Yes, yeah, I spoke to her at length. She's a student at a college up, I believe it was Rochester. And
it wasn't Columbia, was it?
I beg your pardon?
It wasn't
Columbia
Columbia journalism. That's what we usually get the students.
I don't know who it was, but she was writing, she had been interested in Black history, in the Black history of the Catholic Church. So she was looking into that and she had come across our letter. So that's why she was very interested in, and actually that kind of sparked me to think, okay, there is interest, as Bert says, out there in this. It's not just the architectural excellence of the church, which it's really not, but it's the history of our neighborhood.
That was an African-American neighborhood, 53rd Street.
That's right.
As was the South Village. When the church was in the South Village, that was also an African-American neighborhood.
That's right.
Okay. Any other questions about the letter? All right, I'll entertain a motion. Somebody raise your hand.
Motion.
Good. I see a bunch of hands. That counts as a second. All those in favor?
It's administrative. Do we need a vote?
Right.
Yeah, actually, we don't need a vote. I just want to make sure you guys are all on board.
I'm in favor, but I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, no, all right. Well, you guys all seem on board, so we'll send it as an administrative letter. All right, next issue. This is also an administrative letter, but I want you all to know what's going on. The land use chairs and me had a meeting with Corey's office last week, end of last week, about the proposed legislation to put in a formal 10-year comprehensive planning cycle. And the letter we are proposing to send basically says, you dumped a lot of stuff on us at the last minute. The public hearing on this is tomorrow. We haven't had time to digest this. We haven't had time to figure this out. We expect that you're going to be doing a lot more community outreach and come back to us before there's actually a formal vote. That's what the letter says. Marty.
I really appreciated that letter. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Betty, you're on mute.
Oh, only it's not about the letter. The letter is very well done. I just think in the near future, doesn't have to be tonight. We need to figure out for our two land use committees when the city council person or persons come to us to explain it in a slower, more careful way. So let's just put it on our to-do list when we're going to do that. Which meetings we're going to do that at.
All right, Jesse, I'm going to ask you to make sure you keep a tickler on that and figure out the land use stuff. Alan.
You taking questions or comments on the legislation, or you want that in writing emails to the office for future reference?
To the office for now. This letter was just, hey, you're rushing this through. We need you to put the brakes on because we need to understand this. Leslie.
Just for the record, Lowell, thank you. I agree with Marty and I second everything that he just said for this letter. Thanks.
Okay, so this is administrative, so we're not voting on this. We've made it through all of the main business items. Upcoming board agenda and committee schedule was in the Dropbox. Does anyone have any questions or problems with any of that? If you do, please take it up with the district manager because we haven't made him work enough tonight. Next would be the board chair report and small meeting report. So I have to change screens here for a second. the ongoing meetings regarding the NYCHA working group, the Port Authority Bus Terminal working group, the Empire Station Complex working group are all ongoing. The monthly DHS provider meeting is still ongoing. Upcoming events that we have planned. There is a sock and undergarment collection drive that Maria is spearheading. That is next weekend. There will be a DOE admission policy change forum on March 8th that Kit and Alan are handling. And the Social and Racial Justice Task Force is holding a meeting about health disparities in the district. And that is going to be focused solely on what happens within Community Board 4 in terms of who's getting sick and who's getting access to the vaccine. Other small meetings, the Chelsea Market Community Advisory Board met. You heard about the meeting with Related in Hudson Yards with BLP and Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use. And you heard about the CB4 Land Use Leadership Plus Chair meeting with the City Council. That's all I've got right now. To the district manager for his report.
Hi, I just wanted to give it, if there's anybody that had any questions on all of that. That was a lot.
Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Joe.
I just wanted to note that the Chelsea NYCHA Working Group is officially concluded its work and the report is in production. And there has been about 3 to 4 weeks of discussion and wrangling about the text of the report. And it is now down to just reviewing some final graphics. So we expect that to be released, and there's now a communications subcommittee and this to be rolled out publicly sometime in March. And the folks who will be leading that charge will be the tenants, the NYCHA tenants in that effort. So there really is.
Let me amend that a minute, Joe.
What?
Let me amend that statement just a bit. On my meeting this afternoon, which ended not too long ago, we got the final word on that report. Okay, the working group's report is final. It'll be released tomorrow through a public statement by Isella, at which point there will be a live link on the NYCHA website where you can see this and download it and everything else. It's about 100 pages or so. It will also be printed, and within the next 3 weeks or so, it'll be mailed out to all the tenants. But the fact is, it's done. It's over. Isella's role in all of this will conclude tomorrow. There's no more Isella and Hester Street. In fact, what we've got now is this RFP development committee, which I'm a part of, which is now putting all this into effect. And why don't I let you guys finish your business and I'll give you an update on what that is, okay? But
right,
just so you know, there'll be a live link in that press release tomorrow where everybody can see this thing. It's all done.
Right, there was a little few bumps at the very end, and Mike has more information than I do because I dealt with this last week, and I'm glad that this part is over. And for anyone who wants a copy, it will be a live link. It's not something that, and once NYCHA issues it. All I want to caution everybody is that everyone said this before. Let's see if it comes out tomorrow. I hope it does.
Maria.
I was going to say Christine had her hand up, but I was.
Christine called on 4 times already tonight.
Okay. 2 things I was going to mention. Oh, I hear an echo. Hello?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, great. Thank you. The sock and undergarment drive, that collection is this coming weekend, Saturday and Sunday, from 12:30 to 4:30. And the other thing I was going to mention, shall I give the information right now, really briefly? Some information about those DHS meetings. Is that okay?
Sure.
So starting, I just want to share that in May, we began having meetings with individual providers of the emergency temporary shelter locations. But starting in October, DHS began the monthly meetings. So this past month, this month we had our 5th meeting. And at those meetings is DHS leadership of all the adult shelters in the city, the borough lead and leadership at each of the sites that we have in the community. And five providers attend. Usually there's just a discussion about the social services occurring on site versus telehealth, the collaborations that are happening in the community with different providers. We usually talk about what's usually shared also is the number of beds, the number of move outs to permanent housing, the number of transfers. And in this community, thinking about the sites, there's from 65 to sites that have 65 folks to well over 300 people. Each site varies in the population. And in some locations, the population itself varies. They talk about the security perimeter checks that happen. There's monthly on-site COVID testing, the vaccinations that are occurring at BRC. And I guess as everyone is probably fully aware, there was discussion about the challenges that exist with getting, at the last meeting, we discussed for a little bit the challenges with getting staff and clients vaccinated because most are people of color. So that's just a brief. If you have questions about it, you can reach out to me. Those are the things that were on the top of my head to share with you.
Okay, Jesse.
Yeah, I just quickly add to that, Maria, that in addition to everything that Maria just rolled out, which was a very efficient report, we do go over any complaints that obviously has that we receive, that either the community board's office receives. We also have a newsletter that we send out, which provides a way of reporting a specific incident to us, so then we can refer it back to the shelter that's needed. But anything, obviously, 36th Street has been obviously a very large topic of conversation over the months. So is the Skyline Hotel and the area around the Skyline Hotel. And so I just wanted to clarify that as well, that those items from the community that we do hear from, complaints about and issues that we do circle back to the providers to hold them accountable.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Christine.
So 2 points. One is the NYCHA report. Are we going to get a presentation on that? On what is in there, like a PowerPoint saying this is essentially what it is, and get some explanation?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, we thought we would, after it's released, we would come back and there should be a community forum on it, not just a presentation, but a whole thing now that it's final,
And the second thing is I have volunteered to help people get appointments, and I'm losing my mind. Appointment for vaccination. I have talked to the technology community who thinks that this is not a big deal. It's a simple thing to do. And my understanding at this point is that the city is not giving access to these other, developer, coder, etc., to improve the process. So I don't know, Lowell, could you possibly bring that issue to the Gail Brewer Borough Board meeting and say that this is absurd? There are people out there ready to write some code to make it better, and it's not very complicated, and the city is refusing to let them in.
I will be happy to raise that at Borough Board. I think the answer we're going to hear is there are not enough vaccines yet, so that's why the people are having trouble scheduling appointments.
I
think that's what you're going to hear as an answer. I'm not saying it's the right answer. I'm saying I think that's.
No, but the technology people know that, and I know that. That's not the issue. The issue is that there should be a waiting list, like you go to the movie. You have a waiting list. You put your name in the waiting list, and then the guys, when they get their vaccine, they grab from the waiting list. It's just everybody's focused on the vaccine, and then behind that, this is a mad rush, mad running, which is really not.
There should be a single portal, period.
Well, no, but this is not. Now they tell you there is a portal, but then you don't know what's available. There should be a place where you get in the queue. If you put your name in the queue, then you know that you are going to get the next one in the right order. And you don't have to be worried about all the time checking queues constantly, which is crazy.
I will raise it with Gail.
Thank you.
Okay, Marty.
Thank you for so much for having this discussion. It's a really important one. I was curious, Jesse, has your office received a lot of complaints about the difficulty of getting the COVID vaccine?
Jesse, you're frozen.
No, I mean, we don't. Sorry, am I unfrozen now?
Yes, you're okay now.
Am I unfrozen now?
Yes.
You're frozen now.
Okay. No, Marty, I think I heard your question. That we have not received a lot of complaints on this issue. That's saying my internet is unstable.
Yeah, you're unstable.
He's got to be to work with us.
Because you don't have the vaccine.
Or you are too stable.
Thank you so much, those of you who are doing that work. It's so important.
Can people hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Everybody's frozen in a very funny face, just so you know, and what I see at least. To Marty, very quickly, no, we have not heard a lot. We don't get a lot of those complaints. I'll be honest with you. I'm sure they probably are most likely going to elected officials and to health providers. But we are aware of it. I mean, I hear about it all the time in terms of just having conversations with people, in my normal everyday job. And we are on the mayor's office does provide us with every 2 weeks a update from the health and hospitals on their test and trace and vaccine core. And so Maria, I think Lowell's been on that once or twice, and I think, and I know Maria and Joe, I include Maria and Joe on those invites. So it's helpful information, but it is frustrating because I think what Christine is saying is very true, which is there's this continuous dance between getting enough supply to provide, and then when you don't have the supply, you don't have the infrastructure to prepare people to get ready to get the supply. So so the supply shows up and everybody runs and tries to figure it out, and then the supply runs out, and then no one else. Then the conversation about the infrastructure doesn't happen anymore. So I think that's the
Jesse, can I just piggyback off of what you're saying? And the last meeting I attended was actually about 3 weeks ago, and I know things are changing weekly, but at that meeting, they harped on the fact that there's just not enough vaccines.
Well,
that's why I said that.
Exactly. Yes, Lo.
Because that's what they hide behind. Actually, the next test and trace meeting is this Wednesday. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to attend it. I have a doctor's appointment, but if I can, I will raise this issue there.
I mean, the way we are right now reminds me of, when people are very hungry somewhere and they come with the helicopters and they drop, the batch. And then everybody comes and try to grab something. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And it's like you are supposed to stay up 12 hours to click on all that stuff. Otherwise, you don't get a space. It's insane.
Joe.
Yeah, just for info from our work with Ryan Health Center, except for the storm, it looks like the supply is going to start to increase in the next coming weeks. And now the challenge is going to be that there's not going to be enough locations, which is totally ridiculous. So that's our next thing coming, I believe, during March and early April.
JD.
Christine.
Yeah.
My friend Millie Glaberman, longest serving member of this community board in her 10th decade. Pretty savvy, still goes to work for the union. Chuck Schumer's teacher. She cannot get a shot. No. This is particularly disturbing to me. I wonder if you can help her.
Sure, send me her name. But, I mean, the amount of help I can do is very limited. Like just during the meeting, I have had 7 notification that, you know, vaccine was available in one place. So what I'm supposed to do now is run to those things, to each of these places, and reserve something, which is crazy. I mean, just, it's not the way to do it.
How much are you selling them for, Christine?
Huh?
How much are you selling them for?
Well, talk to me later.
All right. If there are no other questions, I'm going to go to Jesse's report.
Okay. So give me 1 second while I pull up my screen. So I'll try to be as quickly as possible. So March committee updates and board reminders. So the Lowell mentioned the committees that are doing public forums on those topics, so that I won't go over that. Chelsea Land Use and Transportation Planning Committee will be holding a joint committee on the Empire State Development Empire Station Complex draft EIS. So that was released last week. ESD has agreed to come and present. And so those two committees will be meeting together, and we're having that review and then making a letter from there. All other committees, for at least for the month of March, are meeting on a regular time. That's really it. So just so we're all aware, we're beginning to pick up the search for a permanent office space. So right now we're in a decent spot, but it is only till 2023. And so we're looking in the same building, and I think we found a space. And so again, Lowell knows this, it's a long road. And so it's a lot of ups and downs. Bert knows this too. There's a lot of ups and downs. So, but I think we found a place in the same buildings, which is nice. So we don't have to move. And it's a bigger space. And so it's nice. So I'm going to circle back with Lowell, but that's just a recent discovery.
Does it have room for a conference room?
It has room for a conference room, a pretty sizable conference room. I think it could hold a committee meeting, a moderate sized committee meeting without any issue. And it's larger, and so yeah, I think it's good. Right. And if it's because it'll be a long-term lease, they're going to, fit it out completely to our liking, which is what we want.
Cool. Any questions? All right, Ms. McIntosh had a new business item she wanted to raise.
Yeah, I just have had some conversations with Mike Noble about the fact that there's now a functioning RFP, request for proposals, for development of the NYCHA sites. And I thought he could just briefly say what it's doing and who's on the subcommittee. Well,
Yeah.
You mean RFP, Betty, you mean committee?
I'm in committee.
Yeah, it's a subcommittee. So yes, the working group is over. They made a recommendation, right? And that recommendation says, to the effect that, and I'm going to read you the way it's presented by NYCHA to everyone at the committee and to residents. I'll talk to you. I'm getting an echo somewhere.
Yeah, we fixed it, Mike. I got it.
Okay. So let me first say this. All right. And when I started on this committee, I showed up and I was expecting to see all the familiar faces from the working group, like Joe and everybody else, And no, it was a new day at school, kindergartens. And all I saw there were a bunch of residents from NYCHA and Fulton, Chelsea and Fulton, who had been on the working group, along with all the NYCHA people from various departments, as well as people from the Citizens Housing Council, right? You might be familiar with Jessica Katz, right, from the working group, right? And Sarah Watson. So they're facilitators of this thing, just like Isella was for Hester Street. So they're there giving their advice because they've got enormous 80-year history of experience in housing like this. So they're there. However, the point person, and I guess everybody should be aware of this, Jesse and the rest of you, with respect to this RFP thing, is Anand Amin. All right, so he's at NYCHA. Yeah, Joe. Anand, he is the point person along with Simon Kowitsky. All right, on the drafting of the RFP, which is what we are doing as a committee. We meet every week. And what they did was, initially gave us an RFP that was issued a few years back to regarding some developments in Brooklyn, a bunch of buildings, along with the response that was finally picked. And it shows us the development process, what went into making it and how it was responded to. And we were trying to do the same thing, modified, of course, for Chelsea. That's where we stand. We've got weeks to go on this to get a final RFP drafted, but that's what we're all learning to do. And it's been instructive to a lot of us, I must say. In any event, the point we're at now, and I know I would love to share all of this, all the draft materials with everyone. And I asked about it and I can't do it. It's like a secret society, skull and bones of the Chelsea working group. So I can't do that. I can fill you in, however, and tell you that what we're doing now is drafting this thing. And we expect that it's going to be accompanied by a bunch of material that's going to get mailed to all the residents. Right? So 3 weeks from about 3 weeks from today, there's going to be an initial letter that goes out. And that will be every household. And what it's going to say is that all the developments that are being proposed here are going to be done under the PACT program. And the words that they use are per the working group's recommendations. And we did say that anything that gets done right through our recommendations has to be done in accordance with what's in the report that we finally agreed on. Okay? That letter will tell the people as well that there's going to be some resident engagement meetings coming up, right? And there'd be 2 of them identified in that letter, right? The households would also get mailed to them the slide presentation that will be used during those resident engagement meetings, right? So we'll get to see that. There'll also be a 2-page compilation of a bunch of things that explain what the PAC programs are all about. So that stuff is going to go out in about 3 weeks or so, right? And resident engagement meetings will happen 2 weeks after that. The final RFP, however, so that's the place where people are going to get to learn about the final results of the working group's recommendations, right? Where they ended up, and they ended up here in NYCHA's hand to be used in the development of these projects under the PACT program, all right?
So Mike, I think we got the heart of what you're saying.
The final word, however, okay? So everybody's going to get to see all this. And once that happens, once we send these letters out, then I can share them with all of you because you won't see them anywhere else. The virtual meetings are aimed at residents. And although the public can, get a hold of the link and join in, of course, right? They're not going to be allowed to speak at length, all right? So it's generally for the residents, but everybody's invited. And I will let all of you know because I'll have these letters and I will share them with you because at the point that they go out, they're public to me and I can at that point share them with you. So that's a few weeks down the road, okay? A few weeks from today.
Thank you, Mike. That's very helpful. I just thought it was important that everybody knew what was going on at this point. I think Joe wants to say something.
Yeah, hey, Mike. One thing I'm a little bit surprised at is we wrote this report to make it clear that although the primary work is done by the NYCHA tenants, as part of this, you were able to bring in and consult with any other stakeholders you wanted. That's actually in the report. So I think we should probably just refer this back to Robert Atterbury to make it sure that it is now not the consultant that NYCHA chooses to work with you to determine to get to the end.
Yeah, well, let me clarify something there as well, okay? One of my requests today was to get you and Robert and Chris involved in this, right? And at the very least, when we get down to the point where we're at the final discussion draft of this RFP, right? I said, let's get a copy out to these three guys, because if it were not for them, we wouldn't be having this discussion, right? NYCHA wouldn't be talking with residents to get this thing done, right? And Simon said to me, well, we thought about it, we discussed it, and if we invite them in, and it would only be you, Joe, and Chris, because Robert's involvement was with something else that's really not part of the RFP process, but you and Chris for sure. And I said, well, we thought about it, and we feel if we invite them, we're going to have to invite a whole bunch of other people. All right. That's where that stands at the moment. That doesn't mean it's over, because I got weeks to go here. I'm going to keep driving it into them. You got to get them, like what you just said just now to me. I'm going to pass that along. There's a consideration. See, it never would have gotten to my ears had I not been at this meeting with you, Joe. And I will say that, let me just tell you a quickie. The rent cap deal, Joe? What happened recently was, they did present this to HUD, but because they got change of personnel going on down there, they said they're going to take it up in a couple of weeks, and they are amenable to this thing. Can you believe it?
Great.
This is an unbelievable thing. It never would have come to pass had it not been for the working group. This and the whole RFP thing and that rent cap are just phenomenal. And I'm constantly amazed by it, but I'm going to keep pushing for you and Robert to, you and Chris, get in there at some point here, because there's stuff that might have been missed. And I can't show you the bloody thing because I'm just, I took an oath.
It's not an oath. People were required to do non-disclosure, which makes perfect sense.
I know. I'm just saying that. I'm just, you know what I mean. So that's where we are.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks for the update. Marty, you have your hand up.
It's not about this, it's back to COVID. So if somebody has something to say about this, they should go first.
I have a question about it, just really briefly, if someone can share. The group that's forming to help with the RFP, has that formed already, Joe or Betty?
The what?
The group that's formed to help with the putting the RFP together. I don't know if I'm framing it correctly, but I know that there was another group and it's supposed to include tenants.
That's what Mike's reporting on, that it is now a group of tenants and facilitated by the Citizens Housing and Planning Council and NYCHA, but no other stakeholders, which is not really what we agreed to.
Okay. Gracias.
Yeah, this is it. So that's why I say I was shocked. The first meeting, I was shocked. But I was happy to be invited, So.
Yeah, but they're supposed to be working in accordance with the goddamn report, which will be released tomorrow.
Yeah.
Leslie is
spy in the camp, Joe. Spy in the camp.
Probably Mike and Hector and Joe and I should maybe have another conversation. So the people who are on the rest of this call are not going to get too restless.
Okay, Leslie, is this about NYCHA? Leslie appears to
No,
be.
new business.
Okay, Marty was first.
I'm appreciative of the work that Christine has done. As to my knowledge, we've not written any letters to say something like what you're going to say. I'm wondering if we should, even if it's just an administrative letter that expresses the board's indignation of the mess we're in.
Yeah. Well, that would be HHNS. You guys want to write a letter?
Could I suggest that we bring it up when our elected public session?
Yeah. Good idea.
Okay. All right. Leslie.
Just since I have both trans here and BLP and Jesse also, there was a problem or a request by a restaurant that could not provide outdoor dining seating because of part of a bike rack, the city bike. And we requested that maybe part of it would be moved so this restaurant could at least have some sort of outdoor dining. And there was a back and forth. DOT curtly responded to my request, and I think Jesse then kind of jumped in a little on our behalf. And since that request or inquiry went out, there have been one or two other restaurants with similar circumstances. I'm not sure if it's as urgent as this particular one, but we're trying to save our small businesses here and help them. And if we need just DOT maybe to work with us on some of these extenuating circumstances, Jesse might be able to shed a little bit more light on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, you know, it's the issue of the city bike racks in front of a side street restaurant that has, so it's very limited to its outdoor dining for the open restaurants program. And we sort of went back and forth with DOT. They're still willing to meet and talk, but at the end of the day, they basically said that they are, you know, that before the open restaurants program started, that they, or when it started, they had listed that they wouldn't be removing any street furniture, you know, for this program. And so, and that includes city bike racks, you know, and so I think, in my opinion, that's fine if it was a temporary program, but now we're saying it's permanent and, you know, and it's going to go in long. So there's got to be a little more thought around this. And I know you guys have all done work on it. So I don't know, but that was my thought.
The feedback I got from them is that they are very, very concerned, DOT, about the permanent open restaurant and what it's going to do to the transportation infrastructure. And they are probably coming from that position saying, look, it's already happening. They are forcing us to do this, this, and that. And we are not going to be able to protect the street and the street space we need for transportation. So that's, I think their position right now is a little bit rigid because of that.
I think so, Christine. I just feel like we keep saying we have everything to, you know, we want to help our small businesses. We'll do anything. There's all this, you know, blah, blah, blah about it. And then when there's one that's actually hurting, and they got rid of 90% of their staff, they just want to put a few tables out. Maybe we can negotiate with DOT. I don't know. You would know better than I would.
The other thing they pointed out to me is that there is actually a portion of outdoor restaurant, which is a little further down, that the restaurant has put out. And therefore they said, well, you see, they have done it. They have put it over there. So that's not a problem. So this situation is a little confused because of that. You know.
I think the rigidity is, yeah. I just think they have to take it by a case basis. And I think as a board, we should really look into it as well as, you know, if one restaurant can do it and then they're semi-okay and one is getting slammed because there just happens to be a bike rack in front of their business so they can't put it out there.
Well, you know, we're going to, I mean, I know this is COVID and we are trying to help them, and maybe you and I should talk about how to do that physically, and I'll come up and we can visit.
Okay. And I think Jesse said he would come down for a meeting with them as well, right, Jesse? With the not to draw you in to do another thing,
right?
But
we can sit down and look at whether there is any other option that would help.
Okay.
And that would be an approach. But clearly DOT is very, very freaked out about everybody's going to want to have an outdoor, and you just can't do it everywhere. And so Jesse was there. We had a meeting with kind of a small meeting with the commissioner, and they are really nervous. So they want to be as conservative as possible. But I'll go up and help.
I'll email you. We'll
Okay.
Okay, anyone have anything else? All right, then. we're-
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Yes.